The kitchen is the one room you are moving things and grabbing for things and getting and working with things way more than any other room. And if you move your kitchen to function for you, it just makes the whole process so much more enjoyable.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rothbard. Justine Doiron is the recipe developer and food creator behind Justine Snacks. Known for her simple, inventive recipes across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, Justine specializes in comfortable, cookable food with a focus on seasonality and approachable ingredients. On this episode, we have such a great conversation about her debut cookbook, Justine Cooks. We go over what she is cooking in her Brooklyn apartment and what went into creating this truly remarkable debut. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Justine Doiron, welcome to This is Taste. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thank you for having me.
I love your book. It's out. We're recording this in mid-August. It's coming out in a few months, but you must be excited.
I'm so excited. I was telling you earlier, like seeing it in real life has changed everything about the book, and I just can't wait for everybody to see it.
You really took your time on it too. I love how measured it is. What I like about the book is a couple things. First, the photography is really, really beautiful, and the production is nice. So the photography is really stand out. And second, I just love your writing. It like blends the internet with, I'd say like more like literary sensibilities. I hope you take that as a compliment, that you kind of do both at the same time, which is hard.
I really appreciate that. What I did with the writing was that was the part that was really personal to me. Like the photography, I could take absolutely no credit for it.
Yeah.
That was all Frances Boswell, my food stylist, Brooke DeHonorine, prop stylist, and then Jim Henkins, photographer, who's amazing. And they really took the lead on that. But the writing was like my baby. And what I wanted to do was to take kind of my newsletter, which is where I connect with my audience, and then flesh it out to a perspective on food that could really tell a story through the book.
I love it. I mean, we're going to get into a couple cool essays, sidebars that you do, and you really have a strong point of view. But I first got to ask, New York City, it's summer. It's time to eat outside. It's time to eat at restaurants and support restaurants. Where have you been going out?
Ooh, I like this question. I like this question mostly because I really like New York food in the summer. I feel like a lot of people are like, it's so hot, get out of the city. And I'm like, no, it's dining al fresco.
Hard agree.
Yeah. And so I recently moved a little further out in Brooklyn, so I've kind of been falling in love with my neighborhood again. But a place I went to recently, Strange Delight by Ham El-Waili.
Yeah, totally.
So fun. Like, I was just looking at the menu, and it mixes New Orleans-centric dishes, but it's got a finer dining edge. But it was a long time since I've seen a menu that's just so fun. And so that's been a place that I've been really loving. Of course, I like Hearts, which is in my neighborhood. Yeah. And then The Fly, which is its sister restaurant. But my thing about The Fly, great outdoor space. Wonderful for cocktails and everything. I don't eat meat, so it's a chicken-based restaurant.
Yeah, right.
So I just go for the cocktails and the fries, and I have a great time.
It's amazing that you can actually have a meal out of cocktails and fries. I'm super into that choice.
And their corn is also really good.
There you go. Throw in some corn.
And I totally think of that as a full meal, especially on a Friday night.
So this is a fun one. So I had Sarah Fennell from Broma Bakery. I had Carolina Gellin from the internet and from cookbooks on in the same day. And I come to find out that the three of the authors here at Penguin Random House at Crown Publishing Group for this fall went out to dinner together and talked shop, talked shit, praised each other. What was that meal like?
Yeah, we should have invited you guys. I'm sorry. Next time.
Definitely not. I want you guys, that's your time.
That happened on accident because Sarah just moved to the city.
Yeah.
And so she and I have been meaning to get together for a long time. She has been a great friend and a really good advocate for my work and help with the book. Like we've been talking since we were both writing our books at the same time. And so we were meaning to get together, and then Carolina messaged me and was like, I'm going to be in town for 2 days, because she does that. She comes in and out of New York City all the time. And so we decided to get together, and we really did talk about just you. We talked about this podcast.
Oh, man.
Mostly because I didn't know that there's a question about your least favorite vegetable.
Yeah.
And so they prepared me. I'm very prepared with
my gosh. You guys, the taste check has
Yeah.
has gotten there's like a
Leaked.
little bit of a Cliff's Notes version of the taste check for you from your fellow guests.
Yeah, I know. I got a precursor, so I got lucky with that.
So where did you guys go out?
So we went to a party that Catherine Lewin from Big Night was
Oh, right.
hosting. Her book came out.
Another
She's
former guest?
yeah, killing it.
Yep.
Love her.
Yep.
And so I wanted to intro them to her because she's also a great friend, great shop. And then we, of course, talked a bit about books, but mostly I was like, guys, we're off the clock.
Yeah.
It was really just, catching up.
Casual stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the three of you, we're rolling out your episodes this fall, but they're all tremendous conversations, and I really, really appreciate what you're all doing. Justine, let's back up a bit for listeners who aren't familiar with your style of cooking and what you do online and how you activate your audience. Tell us a little bit about how do you define that style?
So I definitely define it as plant-forward, innovative cooking. I say plant-forward and not plant-based because I'm not plant-based, but every recipe that I develop usually has a strong emphasis on plants, vegetables, produce, even plant-based proteins. That's just how I like to eat. That's what appeals to me. I always used to tell people that I don't cook for you once a month. I want to cook for you every day. Like those are where my recipes are focused. It's kind of exciting new things that you might not see everywhere. Because I love a panzanella salad, but
Yeah.
you probably don't need another panzanella recipe. So
Probably not. The internet is like a little over-indexed on that. I mean, no shade to panzanella,
no, I love it.
but
Put bread in a salad and it's my thing.
yeah, but there's definitely some SEO happening with panzanellas.
And so I entered this crazy SEO world when I started this job, and you can't really play that game anymore. I mean, a lot of people have amazing recipes, and that's why those recipes are staples. But I always try to focus on what could I do to make this a little bit more interesting? What could I do to make this something people haven't seen before? But also, what can I do to make this a very approachable, plant-forward recipe that you want to eat that'll make you feel really good?
Love that. There's a really cool moment in the book and an essay that you kind of articulate this idea of living with the kitchen in your home. And I'm quoting living with because it's kind of the perfect term about how we cook because like no one has the idealized space. No one has that like that photo studio that you see in many cookbooks. It's usually there's a few flaws happening, between the size of your oven, the size of your refrigerator, your workspace. And so you're acknowledging this, which I think is really smart. Talk about the way that we should live with our kitchens.
Well, I think compared to any other room, like your living room, you go in, but you're not moving around a lot of stuff. You're not like getting into your credenza all the time. The kitchen is the one room that I think we don't talk about this enough. You are moving things and grabbing for things and getting and working with things way more than any other room. And that can range from my old tiny apartment kitchen to like these big kitchens with beautiful islands. Like you are really kind of every day doing a dance with your kitchen.
Right. Oh, I love that.
And if you move your kitchen to function for you, it just makes the whole process so much more enjoyable. So when I say that, I mean, everybody probably keeps their plates near their dishwasher. That just makes the most sense. But I'm talking about if you have a food processor, I have a tiny one. I try to keep that within reach because otherwise I'm never going to use it. And it makes my kitchen feel like it's fighting against me if I want to make a recipe instead of it's working with me. And then you were talking about major appliances. I feel the same way. Like you got to kind of understand the ticks of your stove, like what burner has hot spots, what burner is your favorite. I think we can all agree bottom left.
Wait a sec. Bottom right is mine.
See, okay, I think it also has to do with your kitchen because my bottom right is too close to the wall.
So there you go. So my bottom left and bottom right are kind of equally spaced out. And because I'm right-handed, I feel that makes the bottom right a little better for me.
Interesting.
Because I like can kind of swing out a bit.
Okay.
But if I didn't have that swing out space, I would be bottom left.
Yeah.
My old kitchen in my Brooklyn apartment, I definitely was more bottom left. You're right.
See, well, now I'm thinking my wall was on the other side. It's very functional. You gotta think about it.
What's cool too that you mentioned having things out because I had the guys from Burlap and Barrel on, and they're like, great tip: put your spices on your counter that you're going to cook with.
Oh yeah.
I feel like we live in a kind of like society where we have to have our kitchens really tidy and really perfect and Pinteresty. But in fact, if you actually are doing the cooking, and not everyone is, but the folks who want to make 1 to 4 meals a week.
you got to put the stuff out so you can see it and use it.
Oh, 100%. So one of the best things I did was rice flour is a very weird ingredient, but I use it every time I fold sourdough. So I took my rice flour and I was like, instead of having this in this weird corner where I spill it every time I get it out, it's in a ramekin on my counter.
Right there.
Yeah. And it just reminds me like, oh, this is something I want to do every Saturday. I don't bake every Saturday, but it's a reminder.
I love that you mentioned bread, Justine, because you're like sneaky, like genius bread person. Like your recipes, we'll get to that. I don't want to spoil that part, but you're terrific on the bread side. You call yourself a breakfast romantic, which I think is really part of your energy, that you make like statements about who you are and the emotion that comes to you while cooking. And you kind of want to protect breakfast with your life. Explain.
So that's probably a direct quote from the book. I love breakfast, probably because I know so many people who aren't a breakfast eater. And I'm like, this is what I think about at 8 p.m. the night before. Like, I am planning my breakfast. I'm looking forward to it. But what I say in the book and how I describe it is it doesn't have to be a huge cooking project, but just giving yourself an extra 2 minutes to make something nice, or like an extra time to kind of cook and meditate over what you're doing. It just sets my day up for a much better day. It kind of is a self-care practice. Not to get too romantic. The book says it much better than I'm saying it right now.
You're doing a good job. You're paraphrasing.
But yeah, like I will never say your breakfast needs to take you 8 pots and pans and a food processor, like I mentioned. But I do think having granola on the side that you can mix with your favorite yogurt and like pause and actually eat instead of the crazy things that I used to do, which was pack up dry oatmeal in like a Ziploc bag and hopefully find a microwave along my way. There's just a nice practice about that I really wanted to emphasize in the book.
Sweet and savory oatmeal, you have both, and I love it. And I want to dig into the recipes a bit. So tell me about each of these.
Okay, so I needed a sweet and a savory. I wasn't going to do just one oatmeal, especially in a cookbook. I would feel cheated if I only got one oatmeal recipe. So the sweet one is sticky dates and miso with a stewed apple. I always forget the exact name of the recipe. That's the gist.
It's a gist. There's miso in it,
but so important because I make that for myself all the time, mostly because fermented foods, good for you. Love miso, but miso adds a saltiness that pairs well with the sticky sweetness of the dates, which as they stew down with the apple and the oatmeal kind of melt into a caramely texture. So the dates have completely disappeared by the time you're done cooking the oats. It's amazing. And the miso, instead of doing what salt does, which is just very like, hello, I'm here, I'm salt. Miso kind of melts into that and makes this really rich, unctuous taste of the oatmeal bowl. And it reminds me a little bit of the saltiness in the Quaker Oats instant oatmeal packets, which I think is one of the best things.
No need to go low with your voice with that statement.
Okay.
Let's go and put that in the foreground. The salt level in those, I would say brown sugar is probably my favorite, or maple is my favorite.
Yes.
It's salty.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that.
It's so salty.
Is that every kind of food that you do buy has a salty, sweet kick to it.
Totally.
And so that's why I love the miso in there. Now, the savory oats are very much an homage to my grandparents and how they would serve us oatmeal, which was just plain, hunk of butter, milk.
Wow.
And it was they were German, so I don't know.
Austere Germans.
Very much.
Yeah.
I think we might have gotten salt if we were lucky. But that was the savory oatmeal of my memories.
Yeah.
And so when I made this savory oatmeal recipe, which is a hunk of butter and za'atar, I wanted to kind of have the same feeling of just like hearty, earthy, fulfilling, but just an extra zip of interesting that makes the breakfast like a little romanticized.
I love a butter za'atar oatmeal for breakfast. It's a really smart idea.
Oh, I thought you were saying you'd done it before, and I was like,
No.
"Is this a thing?"
No. I love it, and I'm definitely thinking about it. Let's zoom out a bit. I want to get a sense of how you develop your recipes, because it's clear that you think about them deeply, but you really want to have originality and accessibility. I see it, both of them. Take us through your process to develop.
I'm very visually inspired and I'm very culturally inspired. So the za'atar oats, for example, Lebanese culture, like I very much like to take what other cultures have been doing for centuries, learn about it, respect that at its core and then also kind of transform it. So, I mean, everybody loves gochujang, but you know that there's different ways that you can apply those cultural traditions to new techniques. And then when I say I'm visually inspired, I will see food and be like, wow, that's beautiful. But then it then punctures images of other foods.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of my most famous salads, which is in the book, it's baked salad with chili quinoa. And that salad visually is very piled high, kind of triangular with chili quinoa piled on top. That was inspired by a tostada.
Oh, fun.
Because I
love it.
saw a crab tostada, which was really piled, and there was cilantro like falling off the top. And I was like, that's beautiful. What if we could make a salad look like that? So I'm really inspired by a lot of things that have been done before because everything in food has been done before.
Yeah. Well, once you recognize that you're a successful recipe developer, you
Yeah.
can't just think, I'm going to make this fully original from whole
Oh.
cloth recipe, respecting the past, but also, of course, bringing a twist or two.
100%.
Let's talk about salads because in 2024, I would say there's a lot of salads out there in the recipe world. There's books about it. There's chapters. And like, I know being a plant-forward chef and cookbook author yourself, you needed to have it. But I would imagine this was a challenge because you need this salad chapter to be original, and there's a lot out there.
There's a lot out there, and there are a lot of really great salad books out there. And a lot of salad books that I have had that I thrifted that have been from like the early 2000s that are also amazing. So my salads chapter, I really wanted to be true to the book. And the book is if somebody picks this up and they're either a super foodie, love cooking, or they've never cooked before, they'll see something and learn from it and be inspired to take it and transform it. So salads, which again, so much discourse, so much love for salads, I wanted mine to be so doable that it was almost like nobody would be intimidated by a salad recipe. For example, the celery with torn dates and mint, like that's easy, delicious, but lots of people aren't.
What's the dressing on that one?
I think it's just white wine vinegar and olive oil. Super simple.
Very cool.
This book in particular, I think there's only 2 salads with proper dressings. I really have been relying on like a squeeze of lemon, a bit of olive oil, because I'm 10 times more likely to make a salad and enjoy it if I can do it all in one bowl.
Agree. So let me ask you, red wine vin versus lemon, when you're choosing your acids, I've kind of gone back and forth on my preference for salad dressing. Do you have one?
Those are my 2 favorite acids. I'm going to throw sherry and vinegar in
Sherry's
there.
nice too.
I like the nuttiness.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit more of that.
I think right now, if you were to ask me, I'd say red wine vinegar because I think it airs a little bit sweeter. And I over lemoned myself this summer. I was just having...
That hurts.
You love it so much, but sometimes you just go too far.
You go too far, and with salad dressings, I'm more on the lemon side right now, personally. So my wife Tamara and I are thinking lemon-forward salad dressings, emulsify with olive oil, maybe put an egg yolk in there. I know it's not your jam, but like I'm all about this idea of like kind of like switching it up with the salad dressings.
And I know you said egg yolk's not my jam. Is that because of the tonado?
Yeah.
Okay. It's more I don't like separating an egg from its family.
It was the tonado I was thinking about exactly.
Yeah. I don't want to ask somebody to separate an egg if they don't have to.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because a lot of people will be like, what do I do with this yolk? What do I do with this egg?
No, tonado is an interesting topic. I think for some, it's a little intimidating.
I think people don't get it because I'm asking you, and for people listening who don't know what tonado is, it's a blended tuna sauce. So I am asking people to blend up fish. And I think a lot of people are a little hesitant. But I think now that we're in the tinned fish boom, a lot more people are going to get on board.
We're getting closer with our fillets and our tins. So you're blending it up, but you're thinking about it as like a condiment that can work on salad and other dishes.
I drag asparagus through that every day. It's so good. If you want a reason to eat vegetables, tomato.
Basic_beans, which is, an internet thing. I love it. I love that you kind of throw these little flourishes of online vernacular and culture into your writing. I'm a big fan of that. Basic_beans has a story. What's the story here?
I fought for basic_beans. I am worried for the person who picks up this book in anthropology and is like basic_beans, which is why the headnote explains the story.
Right.
The first username I ever had on the internet was Justine_snacks. It's still my username.
It's a great name.
Thank you. But when I chose that name, it was a complete joke. It was for fun. And I think there's a lot of fun that has been lost from cooking and doesn't translate. So I made basic_beans follow suit because I'm known for beans. This is a classic beans recipe. And that's the story I wanted it to have.
So you won the battle.
I did.
I've had these battles. I had to fight for putting an emoji in a head note.
Yeah. We have a very easy editor, though.
We share one.
Yeah.
Susan, we'll get to her.
We will.
I love the idea that there is a buttered noodle universe where tahini enters the picture. I am a fan of this dish, and when I saw it, I'm like, I haven't quite articulated that that starch, like the buttered noodle. I mean, of course, I've seen tahini and butter, but the butter noodle. Wow, nice work there.
Thank you. I love that recipe. It's my fiance's favorite. And after we closed the book, done and dusted, there was a time where I needed 2 months off. You just can't keep cooking those recipes you've been testing forever. But the brown butter tahini noodles stayed in our rotation. They're so easy, 10 minutes, and I call it the adult version of Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Completely agree. And you can have it as a main, you can have it as a side, you can have it. I'm going to make it actually this week. I have a friend coming over.
Ooh,
I'm going to do that one.
That's one where lemon saves the dish.
Interesting.
Because
tell me more.
If it was just, well, actually 3 things save the dish, but if it was just the brown butter and tahini, which is what emulsifies, that would be so heavy. And so the lemon kind of takes that heaviness and is like, turns it on its head, and it makes it something that you want to go back for another bite and another bite and another. And then I think the Aleppo pepper and mint also just add a tiny level up. You could serve it without it. We do that all the time, but it makes it go from buttered noodles to like, ooh, buttered noodles.
Let me ask you about mint. When do you know it's too much mint?
Ooh.
It's tough, right?
It's very tough, but as soon as you take a bite.
Certainly.
I made a salad this weekend, and I over-minted because the herbs at the farmer's market are so good right now.
Yeah, and they give you a lot.
Yeah.
And then you feel like, I can't just use like 1 or 2.
I know.
I got to use like 25.
Yes.
And then you're like in over mint territory.
Mm-hmm. Did that, regretted it. I think I try to go like 1/4 cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you hand-torn?
Hand-torn. I have a bit in the book about a chiffonade cut, but I think every now and then you just got to realize I'm not a chiffonade cut person.
I'm not for mint. I mean, I like it for other things, but I like just popping it a little bit with your hand.
Nice.
It makes your hand smell nice, and then you kind of open it up a little bit.
Yeah, I do the rub.
The rub is probably good. Okay, let's talk about St. Louis. You're from there. You're from this fine city in America that doesn't really get a lot of press. I know Claire Saffitz, my friend, is from there as well. I'd love to get your sense, Justine, about St. Louis food ways. Is there a dish or two that defines St. Louis?
Man, loaded question because St. Louis is such a good food city.
It is.
Does not get enough press. And also, I would move back there in a heartbeat. I know Claire is very happy in Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
I would move back to St. Louis in a heartbeat. But she made a great gooey butter cake recipe, and I think that's a St. Louis staple. But if you were to ask me the quintessential St. Louis food, it would be St. Louis thin crust pizza with Provel cheese.
Oh, yep.
It's what differentiates it. Did Kenji talk about his Chicago pizza piece?
No, we had him on before that piece dropped, but we've had many talk about Chicago Tavern on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what you're talking about.
So it's like, for people who are familiar with that, St. Louis style pizza is taking that crust that you can see through and then putting on a very, very sweet tomato sauce and Provel cheese, which I can't describe other than like gooey, messy, and gosh, it is so nostalgic and so good. But if you don't live in St. Louis, I don't think you can adapt your taste to it.
It doesn't quite work for some. I love the meltability of Provel. It's really smart cheese to use.
I fully recognize that some people don't get it, but I love that meltability.
What about brick cheese? Like brick cheese on Detroit style.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah, Detroit style is pretty good too.
Detroit style, if I could only eat one pizza style for the rest of my life, it would probably be between Detroit and St. Louis.
Yeah, I got to get St. Louis. You're a sneaky, incredible bread baker, just from your videos and your online content, but also from this recipe section, this chapter. Tell me about, how does bread and baking play into your world? Because it's kind of a sneaky superpower you have.
I wanted a breads chapter in the book really badly because I'm a firm believer that cooking is baking and baking is cooking. I know I could argue with a lot of people on this because so many people will say, oh, I'm not a baker, I'm more of a chef. Or I'm not a cook, I'm more of a baker. And I really do think they overlap way more than people think. Both involve ingredients that want to be worked with, time that wants to be manipulated and like patience on both ends and stress on both ends. So baking is such a part of me. I'd probably say on the scale of baker to cook, I am more of a baker. But I really wanted a breads chapter to kind of articulate that idea that you can love cooking and you can also love baking equally. And also, it's such a big part of my brand. I've been making sourdough now for 4 years. I'd be remiss to not have a sourdough in the book.
Did you ever take reps in like a bakery working at all?
No, the closest I got was a culinary class in college.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that I did like the patience of baking, because patience, I think, is the big hard stop that people run into. Because it's a lot of time.
Hard stop. Good one.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
people will be like, this sourdough is going to take me 48 hours, and then they just tap out.
Yeah, they're like, next page, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it really is a specific style of cooking or baking when you have to wait 2-3 days.
Yeah.
For the results.
I have 2 loaves at home that I'm babysitting.
They're getting ready.
They're getting there.
48-hour ferment.
Yeah.
You think Joshua McFadden, pretty late in the acknowledgments and in the world of acknowledgments, the later you go, the bigger you are, as they say. That's my read. I'm kind of kidding. But I loved reading that because clearly this cookbook author isn't really like a super close friend of yours, but you acknowledge how important he is. I'd love to hear, why is he in the acknowledgments?
Interesting. Okay, first, I didn't know that the later you go, the bigger you are. I thought of it as an equal playing field because I didn't reference anybody else's acknowledgments when I was writing mine.
This is really interesting because I'm thinking Oscar speeches usually do like your most important first and you tail off. But then, this is no rule.
Yeah.
Write us, listener, if you have other thoughts on the hierarchy of the acknowledgments.
I know. I'm actually very curious, and now I'm after I wrote my acknowledgments, because I didn't want any outside input, I then tore through a bunch of other cookbooks to make sure I did it right. But I thanked Joshua in the acknowledgments because I think everybody has the cook or the book that changes them. And I would be lying if I said 6 Seasons didn't absolutely change how I think about food. I thrifted it from the bookstore Unnameable Books in Brooklyn.
Oh, love that.
And I remember I was going through, and I thrifted it probably 3 years after it had been out. And I remember just flipping through it because it's a big, beautiful book. And I looked through it and I was like, I want to eat everything in this. But also, I have never thought to cook this way ever, because it's incredibly simple, but it's incredibly innovative at the same time. And so that book left an imprint on me, and it would have been wrong not to have him, even though we've DM'd like 3 times, in my acknowledgments, because everybody has their Ina Garten.
Yep.
And Joshua McFadden just happens to be mine.
It's such a cool sentiment to thank somebody whose work inspires you, not their words or their being, but just their cookbook.
Yeah.
It's rare. It feels rare, and it's cool that you connect with a book that strong in it to allow space in your acknowledgments.
Yeah, it was important to me.
Speaking of your book and the process, we have to give a shout out to Susan Roxborough. We share an editor here at Potter, and I just love Susan so much. What was it like working with her?
I knew I wanted to work with Susan probably from the first call I had with her.
Yeah.
She has such an engaging and lovely presence, but I also know who I am as a creative, and I need a lot of space to kind of muddle through things, make the wrong decision, then come back to the right decision. And I knew Susan was going to give me that space. And she really did throughout the process. We worked together really closely, but every time I was struggling with a decision or didn't know what was true to the heart of the book, she'd give really sharp advice, really sharp edits. But at the end, it was my choice.
Exactly. Same sentiment with her, and extremely precise and sharp line edits. We definitely disagreed on a few. We agreed on most. And I loved working with her. I had not worked with her on a book previously to Korea World. And I had to get her some space on the show.
Yeah. The people will love Susan.
Yeah.
I love Susan.
Justine, on This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The best fruit.
Oh, apple.
What kind of apple? Do you like them in the fall? Do you like them in the summer? Tell me more.
Okay, so we universally have them available. Like they will be good in the summer. You just need to get the right sourcing. So I like a Honey Crisp. The crisper, the better.
The crisper, the better.
Yeah, and I eat one a day.
The worst vegetable.
I knew you were going to ask this. Okay.
So frustrated you feel.
I'm very frustrated.
This is not really in your wheelhouse to talk shit about vegetables.
I know. And I love them, but the radish. Here's why. Where we live, around like February to March, when nothing is growing, you will still have radishes. And I start to hate them.
Yeah. It's a bummer. It's a reminder of a time when there aren't great vegetables around,
Yeah.
right?
It's like, oh, I could eat rutabaga or radish. And I want neither of them.
Yeah. And you're talking English or daikon or Korean mu radish?
Okay. Universally, I'd say the watermelon's my least favorite.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Promises nothing compared to the other radishes. I like a daikon.
Daikon's rad.
Daikon's pretty good.
I don't think you were considering daikon when you were saying this. I think you're thinking more English watermelon.
You're right. Well, yeah, breakfast radishes that we're
Breakfast
talking.
radishes, no need for those. No need.
No need.
That's the end of the negativity. We're going positive. What's the best dessert?
Tiramisu.
Wow. Take us through yours.
Okay. I really like to play around with it. So I have a banana tiramisu. That's very good. It's like a banana pudding tiramisu. I have a
I love that.
It's really good. I have a sour cherry one that I just made, but it's the perfect dessert because even if you're so stuffed, it's like it feels light enough, but there's also that coffee element. Yeah,
sour cherry. Wow.
It's very good. It pairs with the liqueur very, very well.
So smart. Really
Also,
nice twist.
Yeah, my tiramisu has to be boozy. There's no other option.
Yeah. Your favorite American fast food chain?
Does Panera Bread count?
Absolutely 100%. First time it's ever been mentioned on the show.
Well, fun fact, we talked about St. Louis. It's actually called St. Louis Bread Co. within the St. Louis borders.
Oh.
And then Au Bon Pain bought it and it turned into Panera nationwide.
Oh.
The more you know.
Wait, so it's a St. Louis product?
It is
Panera
a St.
Bread.
Louis original.
What do you like about it?
I like that as a vegetarian, I can get a lot of things. I also like that the soups are really good.
Soups are good.
I like that you can get a you pick two, which is like a little sandwich, a little soup, and then you can get more bread if you want.
Yeah, they let you load up on the carbs there. It's nice.
I was about to say it's the only fast food chain with a bread bowl.
It's a great choice. I love it. Let's go into some local New York City territory. Your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
Sofra's gonna have me forever.
Oh, I love that
choice. Classic. Yeah.
Yeah. What a great choice. Your favorite cookbook of all time?
Okay, you won't be expecting this. Of all time, Olivier Gourmando.
Tell me about it.
It's based off of the Cafe in Montreal. It's their little restaurant cookbook. I love a restaurant cookbook, but where normal restaurant cookbooks are very much like, oh, I love reading about this. I'm never going to make this. I want to make everything in that book.
And there's accessible.
Oh, so accessible. There's a Jake Gyllenhaal mention. It's a good book.
A favorite recent cookbook discovery?
Ooh. I love Health Nut by Jess Damick.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not undiscovered. She's very, very known.
It doesn't have to be undiscovered. It's like recent discovery, so it's great.
It's more just like I was having a day where I was like, I don't know what to cook dinner. I was fatigued with testing. I was creatively, and then that book just like, I was like, pulled me out of it.
Last one, your favorite sandwich?
A hot dog is not a sandwich.
Fair enough. I respect that.
I know that's true. So I'm going to pivot and say my favorite is a caprese panini.
Oh, wow. Are we pressing the bread?
Oh, 100%.
Caprese panini. So take us through the middle, the guts of it.
The guts of it. Okay. The products have to be good. So the ciabatta, really good, crispy on the outside, soft on the inside. I'm going to actually skip the fresh basil and do a basil oil.
Smart.
So basil oil in there, really good mozz, heirloom tomatoes, 'tis the season. You know, and actually, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to throw some artichoke hearts in there.
Wow. Mix it up.
I know.
Into that.
And also to go back to the hot dog thing, vegetarian hot dogs, delicious.
Oh, yeah. Do you have a brand of choice?
Interesting. I'll get back to you on that. No free promo here.
Yeah, no free promo. You go to SpawnCon. You got like an email in your website somewhere. You can go SpawnCon. Yeah. I used to be a Foodie Pups guy back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know that brand.
I don't.
Yeah, this is not free SpawnCon.
Okay.
I'm not a fan anymore. I'm gonna make that
really?
SpawnCon.
What happened?
They just pivoted to like a more processed flavor.
See, that's the thing. I used to like Trader Joe's, and they pivoted to bad texture. This is the plight I have.
No one wants to pivot to bad texture.
Yeah, no, they did me dirty.
They pivoted to a lot of bad things, actually. Trader Joe's. Just not a fan of that brand.
I haven't been. So I used to do Trader Joe's grocery hauls once a week, and I haven't been since 2021. And it's I just fell off. There were too many red flags.
There's so many red flags there. It's cool if you shop there.
Totally. It's very accessible. Prices are very accessible.
Prices are great.
Yeah.
totally not going to knock anyone for shopping there. I've shopped there myself, obviously. I just can't get behind it.
Yeah, I used to be going a 25-minute subway there, and you have to really love something to do a
Sure.
25-minute subway ride for it.
Justine Doiron, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up, Eliza?
Not much. I just want to tell you about some cookbooks I'm excited about for the fall in the spirit of some of these little segments we've been doing about the fall cookbooks coming out.
I can't wait to hear about it. We've been profiling these books. We don't have all the books. We're recording this in mid-August, but we're trying our best. We're looking at books that are exciting us, and this is a category that I feel has been underpublished in the past 5 years. I think the cookbook industry has made a decision that maybe restaurant books aren't the biggest sellers for a variety of reasons, but there's maybe a little bit of a renaissance happening. I can't say if it's going to change in the future and there'll be more restaurant books, but you took a real shine to several of the titles coming out that are written by a restaurant, and I'd love to hear about them.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Phaidon because they're publishing 2 of the 3 restaurant cookbooks that we're talking about. I think they're a publisher that is interested in doing these kinds of books still. And, I would never talk about a restaurant book just because it's a hyped restaurant, but these are 3 restaurants that I've eaten at that I think are really special, and they're debut cookbooks from all of them. And I think that one of the benefits about doing a restaurant cookbook is that if you haven't had the opportunity to go somewhere before, you can kind of get a sense of maybe not the ambiance or the whole experience of dining there, but at least what the food that they're doing is about. The first one I want to talk about is called Mingle 2. It's from Mingle 2, which is a really landmark East London restaurant, a Turkish restaurant. It's run by 2 brothers whose father is the Turkish chef Ali Dirk, who immigrated to London, and he opened the first, I would pronounce this, Oshakbasi, which is a Turkish kind of like grilling bar restaurant in London in 1994. That was called Mangal 1. His sons Ferhat and Sertak opened Mangal 2, and that has kind of become really like championed by the food scene in London. It's a really fun vibe. They're doing like really great Turkish food, like grilled chickpea hummus, sourdough pita, tahini tart. They also have a really good natural wine program, and I think something that kind of tips the hat on where this kind of sits in the London food scene is that Action Bronson wrote the foreword for this book. So colorful, special, one of a kind, maybe a little boisterous, really fun restaurant. The next one I want to talk about is also in London. Cafe Cecilia is run by the Irish chef Max Rocha. It's really one of the most special restaurants I've been to. I went for a long lunch when I was in London, which I think is like maybe the fun time of day to go there. There's a book blurb from Nigella Lawson that I'll read because if Nigella is blurbing your book, I think it's a good sign. At Cafe Cecilia, you will find some of the absolute best cooking in London, and I'm greedily grateful for this little gem of a book. So it is their debut cookbook. It's a beloved neighborhood restaurant, and they serve what they would call like simple Irish and European-inspired food. I would say maybe it's not quite as simple if you're not a restaurant chef, but they definitely did pare back the recipes. There's things to make like your own Guinness bread at home. You could do artichokes with sunflower seed tahini. You could do sage and anchovy fritters, which I had when I was there that are really special. And I just think as someone who doesn't get to go back to London often, I don't know when I'm going to be back again, but I know that I'm going to get to cook from this book, and that's cool.
I love it. And I'll just jump in and say the restaurant cookbook is such a great gift. If you're like giving the person a gift certificate or an experience there. And I think that we forget about that sometimes, that when you're gifting, it's nice to have like a preview of a meal you're going to have. I think that's one part these books really play a role. Like I remember the Del Posto book when that came out. I received it as a gift with a gift certificate to Del Posto. And wow, that was amazing. Think about the Charlie Trotter cookbooks. Like there's a long history of restaurant cookbooks in our industry. And I just don't think they've sold well for whatever reason. And that's why there's been a hesitance, and Phaidon's done a great job, I agree, in bringing them back. And I really hope that for whatever, I hope we buy these books, the ones you're featuring here and other ones, to show the industry that restaurant books actually have a place. And I think that you could always do a second book that's more home and chefy. I think Zahav is a great example too, of a restaurant book that has now been in kind of book 2 and book 3 forthcoming, are more home books. So maybe that's a trajectory too that book publishers could look at. And I just encourage all editors out there and acquisition editors, give it a shot. Some of these restaurants deserve their magnum opus. campus.
Yeah, and I think like the books are not just spotlighting the food from the restaurants, but the Cafe Cecilia book has really beautiful portraits of not only the entire team of the restaurant, but the suppliers that are bringing the food in as well. And I think it kind of shows what you can do with a book that is like really trying to show what it means to have a restaurant, not just in terms of the food that they're putting out, but the people that are doing that and the way that they do that.
Yeah,
In that spirit, the last cookbook I want to talk about is the Four Horsemen cookbook.
man.
I think if you've eaten in New York or you know the New York food scene, it's hard to not know about Four Horsemen, Michelin star, James Murphy of LCD Sound System being one of the owners. I just think it's a really perfect restaurant. It is my go-to occasion restaurant here in New York whenever it's a birthday or maybe we're celebrating a career thing happening for a friend, or I want to sneak and visit one of my friends who works in the kitchen there. Like, it really is the most perfect restaurant. And I think a lot of people have been waiting for this cookbook to come out. And I think they're doing a lot of cool things with it. They certainly have a lot of recipes from the restaurant that I've enjoyed before. They have fried skate wing a couple of ways. They have their burnt cheesecake that's kind of lacquered with sherry for a kind of salty, tangy, sweet experience. But they also have really good wine notes in the book as well, which is special. Their wine program has led like much acclaim, and they have kind of like fun, unfussy, special ways about how to incorporate wine into the meal. And I think that it's just something I've been looking forward to, and I recommend.
Yeah, same here. I love Four Horsemen as well, and I think Nick Cartola, the chef there, is also an author of this book. Gabe Ula also collaborated on this book, and Gabe has been a great whisperer of chefs throughout his career and has done many chef books. So I really a lot of hope that this book will really break out again and maybe sell a bunch of copies and get more restaurant books out there. And like Four Horsemen has a real spirit to it that I feel captures Brooklyn dining over the past decade. It really has defined what many Brooklyn restaurateurs and chefs have aimed for, which is international acclaim, but also keeping it neighborhoody. And like, as you said really well, it's like a great place to celebrate for locals, not just for tourists. So I think that's a beauty of a restaurant when you can get both crowds in and both feel special.
Yeah. But I think, as they have continued to grow and as the acclaim has grown, it's really nice to be able to kind of encapsulate a moment in time in a book as well. And it is a special restaurant. So
I can't wait for that for the Four Horsemen book. I have to mention the Balthasar cookbook. We've written about it. I think Garrett Schneider wrote a great piece about it for us, maybe in 2018. And that's one of the classic restaurant books available. It's still in print, still selling. I'm sure with the Keith McNally memoir coming next year, this book will probably get some interest. And that is a book that captures a moment in time. Photography is like capturing the back of the house and front of the house together. There's a book I actually want to mention here, a restaurant book, a terrific restaurant called Kalaya in Philadelphia, and it focuses on southern Thailand. And I literally just got the copy. I think we were doing notes before, and I really hadn't thought about it until now. So yes, Kalaya is a restaurant book that is being published here at Crown. Nak Santaranan is the chef and owner, and really the force behind this restaurant that is really hard to get into, I must say. So definitely book ahead. This might be the best reason to buy the book because you can't really get into the restaurant maybe. I love the fact that Philadelphia gets its own restaurant book. Terrific.
yeah, I love hearing that Kalaya has a book coming out because this is a perfect example of a place that I haven't been to before that I've heard such good things about. And I would love to make it out to Philly and go there. But maybe before I have the time to do that, I can get the book and cook a couple things.
And again, I can't stress this enough. I hope these books succeed and we see more restaurant books because I was bummed when I was looking through Amazon trying to figure out what was coming out. And we didn't see a ton of restaurant books this year in this busy fall season. So I'm hoping it changes.
Yeah, it's also like a lot to ask for a restaurant that obviously is trying to be in business and open as many days as they can to devote themselves to writing a book as well. I'm sure a lot of these books have been in the works for a long period of time because they don't necessarily have the time to be, adapting their restaurant recipes for a home cook. Yes, these recipes have already been in existence because they have been cooked in the restaurant, but the way that you'd cook it at scale is not the same as for an individual. So I think it's nice to see these coming out. And who knows, maybe there are some in the mix that will come out in the future that we don't even know about yet.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.